Well, thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Damien Howley, the Chief Customer Officer from Nimbello, and he's also an accomplished author of the book Control Your Customer, a guidebook for customer success managers. Welcome for coming to our talk, and I'd love to hear more about you, where you're from, who you are, and your path to becoming a CCO.
No, thank you, Ben. It's fantastic to be here. Um, I'll just give you the rundown, the elevator pitch, I suppose. I've been in software literally my entire career. Um, that started in the early days on the dev side, transitioned to like the services side, and built my first customer success team around 2010, 2011. Since then, I've been building customer success teams at a handful of different earlier stage startups. And today I'm, as you said, the Chief Customer Officer of Nimbello. Nimbello, we do kind of super high volume outsourced AP automation. So I will get into more of that later, but that's kind of my journey, through SaaS for the last 20 years.
And AP stands for accounts payable, correct?
Correct, yes.
Correct. Perfect. Well, I think that's a great segue to my next question. I'm sure you've been chief customer officer for over 100 days and had a couple of those roles in your career. But if somebody was just starting as a chief customer officer, what tips, what suggestions would you give them for the first 100 days?
For the first 100 days, yeah, I would say get in front of your customers as much as possible. Like, I mean, get on the road, go and meet your customers, learn about their businesses, become comfortable representing your customers in-house, right inside your company. It's certainly a role that, I mean, there's a lot of operational components to this role, but at the same time, you are, a bit of a spokesperson on behalf of your customers, especially your big customers. There are a lot of moments where internally, right, you have to advocate for certain customers or advocate for a particular, product development or whatever the situation is, and arming yourself with a ton of really, kind of tangible evidence about and an understanding of your customer base goes really far. Um, it helps, helps navigate through kind of what could be some internal challenging moments. So in the first 100 days, that's what I would say is kind of core. Get your footing with your customer base. The other thing I would say is, in my opinion, it's a very dependent role, right? Like, I have dependencies on product, I have dependencies on finance, I have dependencies on legal, I have dependencies on sales, right? Like, everything kind of comes to a head under customer success, and so those are kind of partnerships that I'm looking to solidify and kind of ingrain myself in procedurally, and looking for ways to contribute from input from the customer base into those processes. So that can also, I think, be something that's navigated in the first 100 days.
I think that's great advice. So getting to know your customers, getting to know your company, and trying to ingrain, that customer experience thought throughout the entire organization as quickly as possible. I think that's great suggestions. And that kind of segues to my next question is currently, what are your main focuses right now and in the future in your role? You can be vague if you don't want to get specific, but the lay of the land is changing. So what are you focusing on right now and what's in your game plan for 2024?
Yeah, so for this year, and as you've highlighted, I'm fairly new to this particular role in this particular company. I had mostly focused on scale, a bit of growth, right? There's internal processes that I'm looking to mature, internal connectivity into other departments, and a bit of automation, and kind of, I guess you could probably call it laying a real data foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And to my previous answer, right, like, because of my connectivity into all these other departments, the if I don't have clear data about the customer demands, the capacity that's being placed on the organ, or the demand that's being placed on the organization, it can hinder my ability to drive change in the organization. So right now I'm looking at really laying a data foundation. Think of it as support ticketing systems and analysis and dashboards and reports. In 2024, we'll be looking at just continued operation performance. So my company is part service, part software. We have a service component that's part of every single deployment. And so as we scale and we layer on a lot more customers, that's going to require that we get really analytical and intentional about how we scale that performance. So
That makes a lot of sense.
2024.
That makes a lot of sense. And specifically when it comes to scaling, I'm sure my next question, it fits in nicely. What kind of pain points do you have when it comes to customer experience and customer success? When you're trying to scale, when you're trying to lay these foundations, what kind of roadblocks might you hit, or what are some things to look out for?
Are you asking specifically where I'm at, or just in general?
Just in general. I don't want to give too much of a look underneath the hood over at Nimbello,
Yeah.
but just generally speaking, and if you have specific examples, that would be fantastic. But I'm sure there's a lot of little pain points, but I'd love to just let everybody know what they can expect.
Yeah, no, I think it's great in a general perspective, right? And being in this particular function for the better part of a decade, right? I've hit my fair share of challenges. I would say, from a dependency standpoint, there's a lot of things downstream that can create headaches with the customers. There's a lot of things where think about product feature requests, or think about QA, for instance. If QA is not properly catching everything, right? I've got a whole bunch of customer headwind that we now have to deal with. Or sales, if there isn't kind of strong sales governance, for instance, we can get a deal that is could be dead on arrival, right? Because it's so far out of scope. Or so, not to hammer that dependency, but I see customer successes and customer experience is kind of like center of the wheel, right? The hub.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of connective tissue. Some other things that I've seen just throughout my career is some challenges with kind of the interpretation of what the executive team thinks customer success should be, and how it should be measured, and what the interpretation of those metrics should be. So there are good metrics and there are bad metrics, and there are metrics that are more appropriate for measuring the entirety of your company, not just isolating an individual department and kind of judging that. So those are some of the kind of pain points that I've experienced that I've had to correct and educate executives and kind of bring to light that there are larger scale problems in a company, not just hey, if churn goes up, CS is failing. If expansion goes up, CS is killing it, right? There's a lot of other inputs to that. There's market positioning and the competitive landscape, and there's your overall customer experience and support and service, and there's so many other factors that go into whether your company is going to be successfully driving revenue growth, or is going to be hurting in that factor. Economic, just the economy at large, right? So yeah, everything, right? So and I feel like when I've encountered executives who are very binary in their understanding of metrics, it creates a lot of misreads on internal performance.
Absolutely, and you did a great job touching upon of some of the things you can to overcome these pain points and establish these relationships. And I think that's really key. Is a big part of your role is establishing these relationships and being able to communicate from the customer to everybody else in the company, so they all see the same thing through the same lens, right? So we're interpreting the data and the reviews and the feedback all the same way, and using it to go in the same direction. I think that's really key and one of the integral parts of your role. What are some good stories you've had from your career about how listening to customer feedback has improved the customer experience and the company as a whole?
Yeah, I think I've been able to connect deeply with customers just as an individual, and also teach my teams how to nurture kind of reliable, accountable relationships that end up healthier, or in a good strong position with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing that back in house, whether it's through like a town hall or an internal case study, or like I used to do a lot of video case studies at a company I was at, where
Mm-hmm.
we'd go on site with a customer, and sometimes it'd be 40-50 minutes of me just hammering them with questions, bring that video back, and then it's part of the town hall. So it's creating this just general awareness of the customer and like an identity around who these people are, their businesses. I find that goes a long way to drive an internal kind of appreciation and for the position and the role, and kind of a deeper understanding of the responsibility. Data has been a real big key in driving an internal understanding. So customer data, usage data, the amount of charts I show at a town hall is over the top, right? Like, I'm showing these different cohorts of customers and how they're growing and how others are struggling, and how just what we have, connecting some of the dots from the internal teams to those reports goes a long way to make people understand that their job has a direct impact on our customer base. And so visibility, awareness. I've previously brought customers into the office to present, right? So just it's creating a customer culture.
And you're giving what I would say is numbers a face, right? The data is there, but you're saying, hey, this isn't just a number. This just isn't just company A. These are these people. These are Bill. These are Ted. These people are running this business. I love that. I think that's really important. I think it makes people care more about what they're doing because they know they're actually affecting real people. I love that answer. Do you see some big changes in the industry, and what's your opinion on the future of customer experience and success?
Yeah, I've been at it a while. I've seen a bit of a divergence in kind of customer success. To me, has been questioning its purpose for a while, and so and I think it's perfectly normal and perfectly fine that there's varying interpretations of what the responsibility should be. What I've seen a lot of recently is twofold. One, I've seen a lot of people talking more about customer success owning revenue, owning
Mm-hmm.
not all revenue, but owning, net revenue retention and account growth and contracting and other things. And then I've also seen a second theme that is scaling your customer success through some degree of automation and through larger portfolios and through kind of AI and intelligence and such. I think they're counterintuitive. Like, they're kind of, they don't go well together. And so for me, I think what we'll see is the kind of emergence of some more specified roles in the customer success space. I
Mm-hmm.
think what we'll start to see is, hey, look, the way that you handle this $500,000 ARR account requires vastly different infrastructure and vastly different CSMs than the way that you handle this $300 MRR account, right? Like, I guess to summarize, I think we'll start to see a lot more role specialization in customer success as we just crack this space open and we get deeper and have a stronger understanding of it.
I'm in full agreement. I see more and more customer success jobs popping up all over the place, and they seem to be more of an important role in all sorts of companies. The trend is going that way. Being in the marketing department of a few different companies, this was always just something that was on the side or something we didn't focus on, and now it's an actual role you would have in almost any marketing organization or company. Um, so, I want to get on your soapbox a little bit here. If you had any advice for an aspiring customer experience professional, what would it be?
Um, yeah, I'd probably go back to what I was saying earlier. Understand your customers, understand your customers' objectives and like why they buy software, and ultimately what the underlying motivations are for them to make a buying decision that ended in doing business with you. I would say Yeah, I'm trying to think of just all the different things, right? Like know your customers, understand their objectives. Um, Internal operations is a fairly large part of my job, and that's
Hmm.
it does lead me into a lot of like the connective tissue across the entire company, like those transfer moments for a customer, right? When a customer goes from sales to implementation, or they go from implementation to CS or to support or whatever that journey is,
Hmm.
those are moments that matter, like those operational transfers internally. And so I spend a lot of time um, fine tuning those and making sure that the customer is not aware that they're being transferred, or aware that they're part of a kind of conveyor belt of sorts. And that's a lot of the operational overhead that I have to spend time on. So I don't know.
That
This
makes sense.
general answer.
So
There's a
how do
lot
you
more.
measure that? How do you measure if those transitions are going well? Ideally, the customer would have no idea, right? These different life cycle stages of their life with your company. So how do you measure those and know that you're doing well and there's satisfaction there?
Well, so I say it's one of those things where when it's not going well, you'll know about it,
Yeah.
and when it's going well, you won't know about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I will do a lot of overlapping transfer moments. So, for instance, I'll bring in the implementation team pre-sale at like 80% probability. So when a deal gets to about 80%, 85%, depends on what the deal velocity is. But I'll start bringing in the implementation team to become more aware of that, maybe get introduced. I might, in some cases, go in and do a presentation about the implementation experience.
Hmm.
You start kind of refining that transfer, so that by the time it happens, it doesn't feel like a transfer. It feels like, a baton being very smoothly handed off right to the next person. It's not very abrupt. So I haven't come up with a way to measure them, other than when you get, a nasty email from a customer who says, "Hey, I talked to so and so, and they have no idea what my project's about," or
Hmm.
they don't know anything about my customer. Internally too, right? The way that data follows a customer is pretty important. I've found historically that there's so much information that is gathered and abandoned at each stage, that it is like a shameful almost, right? Like the amount of information that AEs understand about a customer, and as they know, the personal details about that prospect, they know the pain points, they know the buyer's objectives. And so if you've got good systems of record to collect that, pass it over in an elegant way where it's not completely lost and has to be regained, right? It's just basic, very basic
Hmm.
information flow.
Yeah, I think what I hear you saying is setting really good expectations is key. So when you do have those handoffs, they know what's going to happen and it's going to go smoothly because you've built the processes needed to make it go smoothly and you're aware of what's going to happen. And that transparency is key for, satisfaction. I'm a big proponent of expectations and making sure people know what's happening next and next and next because surprises are upsetting. Um, so I've got a couple more questions for you. Before we let you go, is there anything you'd like to share about yourself, your company, your industry, what you do? I know you're an accomplished author. Is there anything you'd like to plug while you're here?
Yeah, I guess you started off there, and then I didn't talk about my book at all. Um, I wrote Control Your Customer. I published it like last November. Um, I wrote it very selfishly to help reduce the amount of time I spend teaching my CSMs, um, which is a sincere and like it's a kind-hearted way to help my CSM, so I didn't have to spend so much time doing one-on-one coaching,
Hmm.
one-on-one call reviews. So it's jam-packed with kind of there's a bunch of stories. There's a lot of failure stories where I've struggled with a particular customer, or I've been part of us struggling, and then maybe 100 pages or 80 pages or something of like very explicit examples of things that CSMs can use to say to a customer for different troubled moments. So yeah, I mean it's I'm proud of it. It's worked out, got really good reactions. Um, But yeah, that's kind of highlight on my book.
That's great. I
Um,
love it. It sounds like something any customer service, customer success professional could read, right, and learn something from. That's great. That is fantastic. Last thing I have for you is, how can we follow you and learn more about your career? Do you have a website? Do you have social media? Where can we learn more about you?
yeah, I mean, I'm on. I would say the primary social avenue for me is LinkedIn, and it's a bit of an ebb and flow. Kind of depends on my kids' schedules,
Hmm.
whether I'm super active on LinkedIn or not at all. But the other, is controlyourcustomer.com, which just goes to my book. But LinkedIn is probably the primary channel for me.
Perfect. Same for us here. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and you have a great weekend.
Thanks so much, Ben. Appreciate it.